Good late afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to introduce you our last speaker. She's originally from China, living in the United States. And this was quite a big coincidence because we met together in Bogota in Colombia. And that is the reason why she's here, by the way. So I met this beautiful person with her husband, Ken, in Bogota at one libertarian meeting. And I'm really happy that they could come here to HCPP. So welcome, Lee.
Thank you, Howard. Aloha. That's what Hawaiian people do. When we say aloha, you're supposed to say aloha. Let's try it. Aloha. Great, thank you. That's me, made in China. This is my family. That was the nicest picture before the communists took everything away from us. This picture was taken in the living room of my grandparents. Okay. Oh, that's okay. On that side, my grandparents, and the person sit in the front is my great-grandmother. She has bonded feet about this big. And my parents are on this side. And soon after this wedding picture was taken, this room no longer belonged to our family. The government said each family don't need that many rooms. And you have a living room and dining room and bedroom, that's too many. So they placed some other families into our house. And this room, particular room, had one family with 6 children and 2 parents. And so that's what the communists did after they got in power. I was born in 1958. Yes, I'm old, over 60. And my father was a medical doctor. My mother was an English professor. Sound like a very nice family, but they later on all became crimes and punished by the government. Oh, by the way, I'm not going to read the words on the slides because I have a lot to talk, so go ahead and just read. And during the time I was a baby in China, it's called the period of Great Leap Forward. And the Great Leap Forward means that China want to bypass United States and Great Britain. They didn't know how to. So Mao Zedong had the idea, if we produce enough iron, the total production of iron exceeded Great Britain and United States, then we became the world power. So then we will bypass them. So how do we produce enough iron? Let whole country produce iron. So I remember my mother was a university professor. They all stopped teaching. University professors and students all started to produce iron, built this little thermos, and to do that. Let me go back a little bit. The reason the communists took power and got a lot of people behind them was they promised the government will take care of everybody, and we will give you a total equality. We will take the land from the landowners and give it to the landless people. And we will take the people who has money, take their wealth away and redistribute. That sounds so amazing to the people who didn't have anything. So they all rallied behind Mao, so start supporting him. And my little brother, until today, my mother still feels sorry that after he was born, he hardly ever had milk. And yes, 56 days is the government decided maternity leave. And because my parents constantly were taken away. For example, my father will be sent to countryside to help the peasants. My mother will have to take the students to the countryside to work as laborers. So they were not able to take care of us. And the communists didn't believe in families. So that's why I was in a boarding daycare center, which means I get to go home maybe once a week. As a baby, only less than 2 months old. So we really never experienced the kind of family life or love of parents because the communists didn't believe that. The communists portrayed a vision of a good life under their leadership. Some people told me those posters, just like the posters today in North Korea. And but the reality was people were dying of starvation or overworked or beaten to death. One of my my grandfather's brother-in-law, he was the chief engineer in a mining company, one of the biggest mining company. He was Western educated. And the communist government put him in prison just because he was Western educated. I think in 1963, my grandfather was called to claim his body from prison and beyond recognition because he was starved, tortured, and they couldn't even, my grandfather, if they didn't tell him this is your brother-in-law, he wouldn't recognize him. Yeah, we didn't have furniture. I think we didn't have table, so that was our table. My brother and I sit there. And the reason there was no furniture is because when they tried to make steel, they didn't have enough coal to burn. So they cut down all the trees and start burning furnitures. And also, they didn't have enough iron ore. We all knew if you want to produce iron, you need to have iron ore. They didn't have enough of that. So what they did was to melt down the ready-made products like pots and pans, doorknobs, shovels, anything made of iron. They melt them down and clean them as a production. And they burn the furniture to melt them down. So the whole country became just ruined. Equality is something that communists brag about it, and they got a lot of support. So now today, when I hear about people talking about equality, I get scared. I got goosebumps. And starting from 1952, China started to nationalize everything. Factories, stores, farmland, everything was nationalized. And the propaganda told people, when you nationalize, you have higher production, you will have a better life, everybody will have enough to eat, nobody need to worry about a thing. And but reality proved the opposite. And at the beginning, everybody was happy, working together and eating together. Eating together means nobody allowed to cook their own meals at home anymore. Everybody have to give the government everything you have, the grains, the chickens and pork, pigs and vegetables, whatever you have to give it to the unit, either your working unit or your village. Then they will assign somebody to cook the meal. Everybody ate together. At the very beginning, everybody was happy because it was like a feast every day. China was still poor that time. A lot of family had food, but they didn't have enough food. So usually the mother of the family will plan. We have this much of flour or rice. We will plan, we eat certain amount each day so it will last long time until next time we can have some. So they have planning. But when you give to the community, they don't plan. They cook everything up. And like a feast, they say, oh, wow, everybody was so happy, like New Year's feast every day. But very, very soon, maybe only a few weeks, everything went out. No more food. So the government came with a new policy and said everybody start eating less. And to help the country, we have to eat less. And also be creative. Find other things, substitute for food. So in the tray of that boy, those are clay and grass. And sometimes, by then, all the temples in China, Buddhist temples were closed. So they have a big container of ashes from the past, I don't know, 100 years or 200 years, a lot of ashes. All of those things were food at that time. Basically, it was anything that didn't kill you, you should eat as food, just to fill your stomach. And today, a lot of people talk about Chinese. They said, oh, Chinese people eat everything that can fly except airplane. Everything has legs except table and chairs. Now you know why. Because the situation forced us to be that way. Those people are getting tree barks off the tree. Of course, they don't have knives or shovels anymore because they are melted. So they have another twigs to get the tree barks and to eat. And my father was sent to the countryside to help the people. People were dying. It's hundreds every day. I remember walking on the street, seeing people just laying dead on the sidewalk. And he was called to the village chief's home. And when he walked in, he saw this guy laying in bed, couldn't move, have a very bulgy stomach. And he couldn't talk anymore. He said, what happened? I asked the family. They said, well, he's the Communist Party leader. He's supposed to let other people have food first, but he got so hungry he couldn't stand up anymore. He went home, he lay down, and started to take this pillow, the inside of the pillow, start eating that, putting in his mouth. Of course, that would not digest. It just stuck in his tummy. And that happens every day. And the whole nation was in starvation. We call them, they're swollen. And they were so fatigued, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't work. They could just sit there. And the theft became a biggest crime during that time because people were so hungry, especially kids. So they will go to the government warehouse or village warehouse to grab something to eat. And anything, the root, they will dig up to eat. I remember my brother will find a hole on the ground. He knew there's field mice in there. He will block this side of hole and burn some grass on the other side and force the mice to come out, and they roast it to eat. I didn't eat it. I was not that hungry, so I didn't eat mice, but my brother did. And another very popular punishment is bury people alive. They invented that way. When you get buried up to your neck, you just couldn't breathe anymore. And people just watch you until your last breath and die. Those are all true stories. Because everything was nationalized, so the government became the planner of the whole economy of the country. So during 1950 up to the middle of 1980, China was, on today's standard, called extreme poverty compared to Latin America or even Africa. First, the government fabricated a model saying, okay, this village, they can produce very high yield of the crops each year. Actually, they cheated. They put all the seeds and all the fertilizer, all the water in one pot, one piece of land, and then use a human to get air through the thick plant, so it could produce a very high yield of harvest. And they invited Mao Zedong to visit. Mao Zedong said, oh, you're great, so that's become the quota and standard for the whole country. And also, Mao Zedong says, God didn't make the world perfect. We people have to correct God's mistake. So the mountains are troublesome. We have to change the mountains. We have to make mountains into farmlands. That's why those terraces. Now, a lot of people go to China today. They go there as a tourist attraction. I hate it so much because all the work put in there. I remember going to the mountains every day to dig, to cut down the bamboos and trees, and then move the stones and make it terraces, and there was no water. So we have to carry the water from below, walk up to pour the water into the terraces. And they're so small, the little each pieces, they couldn't use machines, so all men till the land, doing all the harvest and planting. And they also said rivers are not planned very well because they take a lot of land. Some rivers are whiny, take a lot of land. So we have to change the rivers as well. There was a river in our village, Whiny River. It's been there from the beginning of time. And our villager chief said, "Oh, we don't have enough production because we didn't have enough farmland." Actually, that was not true, but they couldn't understand why the government told us what to do and we're not getting the same result. So they made us to dig a new river straight. And we worked day and night, dug this river. On the day that river finally finished, we celebrated, and then they blocked the old river and redirect the water to the new river. Within a few minutes, all the water disappeared because the new river, the riverbed, was dry. The soil, all the water just soaked in and didn't become a river, keep running. But the old river, the riverbed was sand. It didn't have soil. It couldn't plant anything. Nothing grew in sand. So we lost the old river. We wasted land for new river, and we had no more water. The entire area had no more water. I remember the area we were living, the soil was not good for planting rice. But the government said, all the land south of Yangtze River have to plant rice. North of Yangtze River have to plant wheat. The area I was living, the soil was very clicky. It was good for tobacco and peanuts. But those are considered cash crops. They were not market allowed. So you were not allowed to plant anything that you have to sell or you can sell. So everybody have to plant food for yourself. So when we put the harvest, we never met the quota government gave us. So we plant 2 times a year. And still not enough. So become triple cropping, plant 3 times a year. The soil never get rested. There's not enough nutrient in the soil and not enough water. There's no fertilizer. I remember on the terraces, the soil was so hard, so we would just personally step on the soil. We walk back and forth, just step on the soil, make it softer. Then we plant. At the end of the year, we harvest less than the seed we put in. The government came in, asked the farmers to give the amount of food, grains to meet the quota. When the farmer worked all year long, they gave everything, 100% to the government. It still didn't meet the quota. So they end up have to borrow the food from the government. Year after year, they are always in debt. Let me tell you how poor we were. The farmers work all year long, plant rice, but they could only afford to eat cooked rice 1 meal a year. That was Chinese New Year. 1 meal a year, and only the men get to eat because that area, women and men don't have equal status. The rest of the year, they have a big pot of water. They put 1 handful of rice into it, making a soup. I remember when I had the bowl of soup every day, I could count the grains in that soup. That little. And there's no market, nobody allowed to grow vegetables. So we had salt. And I remember I planted some chili pepper because it doesn't require a lot of land. I just find a little sidewalk and plant some chili pepper. Chili pepper and salt mixed together. And we add the taste to that watery soup. And we get 2 liters oil per year. 2 liters per year. So what we did, we have chopsticks dip into the oil bottle and drop 2 drops in that salt and pepper mix. Now you go to China, you see their food, they're filled with oil because now they have enough. People are just go overboard because we can afford, not because they love it. That was our life. And I thought to myself, farmers, we're the producers of food. Even we were this poor. What about the whole country? What's wrong? Our neighbor have 6 people in the family. They only have 1 pair of pants. Everybody in the house naked because I have no clothes. Of course, they didn't have electricity. It's always dark. And whoever needs to go out get to wear that pair of pants. And that pair of pants already, nobody knew what original fabric because it was patched up. And cities, that's the vision of the Communist Party, Mao Zedong's vision of cities, industrialized. And the reality, almost like that. And all the production was planned. So the government said, we know what's best for you, what you need. So we'll make enough for you. And they have all these posters, a lot of products and a lot of food. But reality was everything was in shortage. So this on this side is 1962. Starting from 1962 until all the way to almost the end of 1980s, everything have coupons. I think probably in Eastern European countries, you might have that too. Food, we have grain, oil, meat, even pastry, bread, and clothing. We have for shoes, for clothes, for fabric, for yarn, and others. We have almost everything: matches, cigarette, salt, sugar, everything is rationed. Even with coupon, it said with coupon you have to fight to buy them. I remember my brother and I, we were so little, sometimes we got to the front of the line, those big people just kick us out. We end up couldn't get anything. And this just tiny, small basket of potato, that many people were fighting to buy with a coupon. This is the last thing, the food shortage is no longer true in China, but this is still true today. One person wants the entire country think exactly as he thinks. Xi Jinping's like that, Mao Zedong's like that. That's why the Cultural Revolution, because Mao Zedong think the problem of China is people don't have correct way of thinking. My father just said a joke about Mao's wife to another doctor doing a surgery. And right after that, the other doctor turned him in because to gain political favor or to be safe for himself, you always have to do something that to prove that you're good. And so by turning somebody else in, that gives you some credit, some protection. Today is the same. encourage people to turn each other in for this social credit thing. This is how the Red Guard treated the intellectuals or the people they don't like. They have a big sign made of plywood, usually very heavy. And the wire usually is a thin metal wire, will cut into your skin. And you're supposed to carry that all day long, maybe 15 hours a day, 20 hours a day, whatever. And so the longer you carry it, it hurts, and the lower you bend. Because in Chinese culture, when you bend means you're kowtow to other people, you're inferior. So the purpose is for you to really lower your head as low as possible. And this is called the jet-propelled position. They just pull your arm as high as possible so you bend very low. And they divided people into two kinds, black and red. We are all black people. Black is, at the beginning, we call 5 black. Landowners, rich people, counter-revolutionaries, bad people, and right wing. The number 4 is the funniest. It's called bad people. We say, who is bad people? Anybody they don't like is bad people. So until today, we often joke, oh, you're number 4, the bad people. And later, they expanded to 9, educated, speak foreign language, educated in the other country, returned from other country, had been to Taiwan, had been to Hong Kong, everything added on and became 9 categories. Our family was in all these categories. They're educated. My father, they all spoke English, and my grandparents spoke English. They're capitalists. They were bank owners, they're factory owners, they're store owners. And so we are very black. When we going to, for example, to train station, there's 2 exits, 2 entrances, one for red, one for black. One time I asked my mother, I said, why can't we just pretend we're red? Because nobody knows us here. And I don't want to go to the black because the black people can spit on you, kick you, beat you up, and they push you away, and sometimes they won't let you get on the train. I said, I don't want that. My mom said, well, no, because they can tell we're not red because our manners. Educated people have different manners, and if they find out you cheated, you're dead. So we didn't even dare to pretend we're not black. And in school, black kids are not allowed to participate in any extracurricular activities. Until today, I didn't know how to sing or dance or draw or anything because we're not allowed to learn all these things because we're black. And only red kids. Red kids is you have to be 8 generations illiterate, didn't own anything, very poor, then you're red. By the way, Xi Jinping's father had this kind of treatment too. I don't know what's wrong with him. He just didn't remember, or he didn't think that's bad. And these names, the way they write your names is also indication of your crime. If they write it in the correct direction, and you are not so severely bad. If they put your name, the character upside down or tilted, your crime is deeper. If you have a cross, it's even worse. If the cross is red, means death penalty. So for me and my little brother, we didn't know what my mother's crime was. Every day we tried to go onto the street to peek how her name was written on the wall or on her sign. Then we would know her fate. And people just, execution daily, hundreds of people. And those people are shot dead already. Of course, burying alive, that's another common thing. A lot of people, day after day, especially elderly people, they just drop dead on the stage. And they also not only put you on tables and chairs on stage to criticize you, after that, usually they give you a gun, you chant it, march on the street and say, I'm so-and-so, my crime was this and that, and people just, bystanders just spit on you, kick you, and threw stone on you like that. Every day my mom was marched around campus on the street. And one day, my brother and I, by the way, that time, all schools were closed. So we didn't have school to go to. So we were at home, and we heard the noise coming to our house. We knew something's wrong. Then we walked out, we saw the Red Guard dragging my mother coming to our house. And they made a circle like this and forced my brother and I in the front and told us, tell us, what did your parents teach you against the communists? Of course, my parents never taught us that. And we just didn't say anything. I hold my brother's hand. We refused to say anything. And they start beating up my mom in front of us. Say, no, this is evidence. You taught your children to refuse the communists. They just beat her up in front of us. Another day, a group of Red Guard came to our house and just ransacked everything and took all my father's shoes to a pile in the front of the house to burn it. Said, look at you. You have more than one pair of shoes. You're such a bad people. And then my mother's clothes and Western style clothes, they shredded into shreds. And the pictures, they burned all our photos. They said, look at these people. They dress so nicely, they still have a smile on their face. How evil! So they burned all the things and forced my brother and I watch it. And my great-grandmother, she never worked all her life. And she was forced to weed the lawn outside in the sun, in the public, and she died very soon after that. And people just, execution is daily. Then our family was sent to the countryside. As I said earlier, that's how we tilled the land. We didn't have animals. We just carried things. We were constantly being relocated. A lot of people ask me, where are you from China? I said, I can't tell. We couldn't decide where we want to live. The government just makes you live here and live there. Everything was controlled by the government. Even who you date, how many times husband and wife can sleep together, everything was determined by the government. You had no freedom. People often ask me, why do you dress so nicely? I said, just because I can. Because the first 20-some years of my life, I couldn't. I have no choice. My hairstyle, my clothes, I didn't have choice. Now I'm celebrating my freedom. So this is my horror story, but it didn't end it very poorly. So we had a better ending. And now my brother lives in Kansas in the United States. My parents, they're 86 years old. They live in Dallas, Texas, and they're retired. And my husband and I, we live in Hawaii. We're all very happy. We count our blessings every single day. They do a lot of things to us. They could, if we don't say no, if we don't opt out. Just like today in Hong Kong, the new law of no covering on your face, no mask, people came out of tens of thousands. Everybody was wearing a face mask today. They say no. And but unfortunately, there's not a lot of support, especially internationally. I heard the president of Czech Republic think China is such a great model. They want the country to look up to Xi Jinping and to China.
So thank you, Lee, for your very impressive presentation. And I think we have a time for questions, so don't hesitate and ask what you want about the situation in China, Hong Kong, US.
Yeah, the thing I'm talking about is not very long ago, and today a lot of things still the same. That's why it's the scary part. And the people don't realize. They look at the high rises and all the infrastructures, beautiful shops and expensive things in China. Those are on surface. People live in fears still. Yes.
Do you know if these things are happening currently in North Korea? We have a very limited knowledge about what's going on there. Very, very few. So, and we even had a speaker about that, but he canceled. So anything you know, it would be very useful.
Yes, I saw some films and footages and photos from North Korea. All Chinese laughed. My generation, they said exactly the same. We can just imagine exactly the same. But I have met many defectors from North Korea. They told me there's some hope, in my opinion. There's some hope because the North Korean government officials realize the power of money and good life. So they are very corruptible. I never thought corruption is good, but in North Korea, it's good. Because I give you two examples. One example is my friend, her name is Praise. She's Christian. Her whole family, next time you invite her, how they escape one by one and all these terrible things. And now they're supporting Christians in North Korea. And one day I was visiting her, she said, oh, we just, one church got in trouble. My father have to go to Washington, D.C. I said, for what? Oh, to raise funds to send to North Korea. I said, why? She said, if we give them enough money, those church people detained, they will be fine, no problem. Oh, good. Hurry up. Send money there to corrupt those people. Another guy I met, his parents was very powerful in North Korea. He went to China as delegate for some kind of things in China. He said he just walked into South Korean embassy, defected. I said, what about your family? When you defect, your family are going to be in trouble and put into concentration camp. He said, no, our family had enough money. We just pay. I said, oh, okay. That's at least better than we were. We had no way of doing anything because the whole country is closed. And also China built a lot of satellite tower near the border, and also use drone to drop cell phones. So people have cell phone and they get connected to outside the world. And I knew a person also smuggle South Korean TV dramas. Because when they watch that, they say, what? You can have life like that? You can fall in love with people? You can choose who you want to love and marry to? That huge impact, those South Korean drama in North Korea. A lot of people, of course, because they caught watching it, those dramas, and put in the concentration camp, and some died. One guy escaped. He was a medical doctor. Now his mission is sending. Also, the other group people collecting thumb drives and filled with information and sent to North Korea. So technology, wonderful.
This reminds me one article I wrote last year, and the name of the article is How Corruption is or Can Save Lives, Human Lives. And I mentioned specifically situation in Panama, because in Panama you have like a lot of immigrants from Venezuela. And just thanks to bribes, these Venezuelan people pay to local Panamanian bureaucrats. They can stay there in Panama in a completely illegal way, because if they stop paying bribes, they will be like put back to Venezuela. So this also, and they probably die in Venezuela. So this is also the reason how corruption is basically saving human lives. Anyway, I have another question for you. So now there is a really bad conflict, almost war conflict between China and Hong Kong. So do you think that if China takes control over Hong Kong, that the next country, the next victim will be Taiwan?
Yes and no. I don't think China is that powerful. They can't. Even Hong Kong, they have to compromise. Chinese government have to compromise. But if if people in Hong Kong doesn't stand firm, it's going to be dangerous. The issue right now in Hong Kong is there's no leader.
Maybe difference is that Taiwan is like, according to them, it's an official Republic of China, you know that.
Right, and the Taiwan is established. They have their government. They have their own rule of law. They have there is country. So no, China cannot. If there's fight in war, Chinese military, some people maybe watched Chinese military parade last week. Those are fake. Because they want to tell the people our country is very powerful. They lie to the people. And a lot of interesting details. They put each person's pants have a little, gadget making noise. So that when they walk, the noise very loud, so impressive. And they put a needle on their collar. So if everybody's head have to be certain way. If you tilt it, you get pinched by the needle. And they choose some people, not even in the military, those models, they have to have the same height, right? And very fit, looks very handsome. So they get all these people pretend. They practice walking that for how many months? Maybe up to a year. But they don't practice battles, shooting or things. And all of the Chinese military commanders after a certain rank all bought. You have to pay certain amount of money to be
Immune.
giving the rank.
Okay.
The more money you pay, the higher rank you are.
Okay.
Not because of your skills, your whatever. And I was so shocked. And because somebody was talking, oh, so-and-so, oh, poor guy, he pays so much money and waited for 4 years, he still didn't get the general. I said, what are you talking about? They said, oh, that's an open secret. Every Chinese knew. Those generals all paid. And also, no Chinese military soldiers can serve over more than 4 years. Usually it's 2 years. They're not trained. They're not equipped to be in battle. Those are fake. They can't fight.
Thank you. And we have maybe time for last questions. Do you have any question? Okay. You? Children have priority.
Sweden is a bit like China was in it now.
Ask.
Sweden.
Not everybody in China had enough food. Most people do. Most people do, but there's still a lot of people don't have food, don't have housing, don't have clothes.
In Sweden, if you break one law, your children can be took away from you.
In Sweden?
Yeah.
He was meaning if you don't want to go to school in Sweden, that is the consequence in the end. I think that's what he wanted to say.
Or if you don't want to go to school, you get punished?
Yep.
That must be a government school.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so thank you a lot for being here, for coming here. Thank you a lot. I hope we'll see next time in Bogota or Panama. And also thank you a lot for being here and for your questions. Thank you.